Hello and welcome to our MC hosted webinar. Today we're going to be talking about avoiding death by CAPA and modernizing your approach to quality event management. I have Dave Hunter and Oliver Wolf with us today. They are with our product team at MasterControl and working on some really exciting new stuff when it comes to our the features within our software. Before we get started, let me go ahead and go through just a couple housekeeping items. If you have any technical difficulties today during the presentation, please use the chat function and we will go ahead and get those resolved as quickly as possible. If you have questions today, at any time during the presentation, you can enter those in the Q&A function and we'll go ahead and address those at the end. And with that, let me turn it over to Dave and Oliver. Thank you.
All right, hello everybody. My name is Oliver Wolf. Glad to be here today. I'm a senior product manager at MasterControl. Before I started here, I was working in the industry, started my career in the pharmaceutical startup. That's been a while. I've been with MasterControl for 15 years and really have been focused on the process module. Some of you might know that, but really quality event management and process-based business solutions all along. And Dave?
Yeah, hi, my name's Dave Hunter, and I'm also in the product management group here at MasterControl. And like Oliver, I've been here for a long time, close to 20 years actually. And my background is more on the technical side, so I've come from a software background, but I've worked long enough at MasterControl that I'm intimately familiar with quality processes. So let's dive in and talk about some of the key takeaways, some of the high-level things you'll get out of this webinar. Start with, it's really understanding quality events. You know, what do we mean by that terminology, and talking through some of the common challenges you may be facing. And then we'll talk about some of the solutions, some of the modern solutions that are out on the marketplace today and how they can address those challenges for you. And then finally, talk about some of the future trends and the purpose-built solutions and how they can really help you manage risk and your quality events better. So I'll give it to Oliver to start us off.
All right, so what is QEM? So let's start by talking about that. Spoiler alert, it has nothing to do with organizing weddings or anything like that. It's not that type of event management. So in our regulated industries, what's driving quality event and quality event management, of course, is rooted in regulation. But as with most regulation, or all regulation, hopefully, in the FDA regulated industries, what's really behind that is it's about improving quality, and really the benefit from that is protecting patients and consumers from harm and making sure that we're helping them and making their lives better. So what is a quality event? Essentially, it's anything in your operations that has an impact on quality, or quality of your product, or the way a patient or person would be using that product. So really anything that doesn't follow the happy path of your procedures, be that an SOP or batch record, would fall into that category. Quality events typically fall into the quality department. That's kind of another hallmark. So where batch records are typically owned by the manufacturing department and the SOPs are owned by specific departments, it's really the quality department that has an interest in pursuing those quality events, resolving them, investigating them, and so on. Terminology-wise, there's a range. It ranges across from industry to industry, slight differences in terminology, but even company to company within an industry. So two common terms across industries in general that are pretty universal is CAPA, corrective and preventive action. And in a way, that's really the centerpiece of a quality event management system. That's where the root cause investigations happen, where corrective action is planned and implemented and double-checked. Another one is customer complaints, which some consider kind of adjacent to quality event management. It's really a post-market process, right? Basically getting data from the field back about experiences out of in the field where customers report back difficulties they might have. However, oftentimes those investigations come in to the quality department and they're relevant to production data and so on. In other industries, med device, you'll hear the term non-conforming material a lot, and that's actually directly embedded in the quality system regulation there. Reportable events, or MDRs, so are any kind of adverse event. Essentially, adverse event is a term in mostly the pharmaceutical industry and maybe dietary supplements and others. On the pharma side and supplement side, a lot of things are called deviations. There's different types of deviations. If you have a lab that does sample analysis, you will have out-of-spec result investigations and things like that. Okay, so diving a little bit in, this is a slide that we commonly use. It's based on many years of experience with our customers. It's one way to do things and structure things in a very logical way. So what you're looking at here is on the left side is what we sometimes call the feeder channel, or the feeder processes channel, quality event channels. So those are those quality incidents, some of which I mentioned: NCMR, OOS, out of trend, deviation. And so the idea is that these processes are generally embedded in your organization. You have SOPs governing them, and they're kind of a self-contained process. Everything on the right in the slide is essentially the CAPA side of things. So the escalation to a CAPA from an individual incident or series of incidents is usually done by a risk assessment. So risk takes into account the frequency of an issue, how often does it occur, what is the impact when it does occur. So in risk assessments, commonly you would basically spit out a risk level that makes that determination and drives that decision: do you escalate? In our system, we commonly have really two stages to that right side. There's an issue review stage. And the idea here is that at that stage, you're essentially dealing not with a one-off or one-time incident, but you're looking at the system level recurrence of incidents. So more often than not always, but more often than not, you would expect essentially that a series of incidents to be escalated, the frequency is going up on something, and that's what gets into issue review, and you take a systemic look, maybe for the first time. So once that happens, there might be a review of the containment action that might have happened at the event level, so more on a systemic level. There could be another risk assessment done. Now that this is elevated, right, where does it fit in the scheme of things? And there's a possibility of closing that event, right? So it got escalated, you determined the risk was low, you close it, and you might do some monitoring if that's required. If it's a high-risk issue, then it really starts getting into the meat of CAPA investigations. So that's where you're kind of committed to your root cause investigation. That is really the building block to build your corrective action, preventive action on. Depending on what that is, if it's a system change, that would commonly feed into your change control system. And the change control system essentially will then coordinate those activities. So it'll coordinate SOP changes and collaborations and revising of SOPs, the approvals. It'll kick off the whole chain of events that happens when changes are made, training activities, and so on. Once all that is done, you commonly would then go into a validation phase for the CAPA, also called effectiveness checks. So this is kind of in the monitoring area of the whole system. So what you're looking for there is, did what we did actually remove the root cause? Meaning, are we now no longer seeing those types of incidents? So that oftentimes requires some level of monitoring. And it's in that little tracking and trending, or we could also call it monitoring, might be a better term. That can be simple reporting. It can be some advanced tools. We have Event Analyzer on there, which is a software tool we are using. One note on the risk-based approach. The FDA has been really promoting a risk-based approach for a number of years now. And that represents a real opportunity to, right, the purpose of that really being focusing your resources on the most critical issues, right? and getting those out of the way, rather than having everything in your CAPA kind of run with the same priority, right, and eating up your resources. Okay, so that's kind of the happy path of a quality event management system. So what can go wrong? Challenges we face. So there's a number of things that can happen. One, there's two things really that we observe quite a bit out there. And kind of like the title of this presentation, there are scenarios where every event leads to a CAPA, and it's kind of death by CAPA. And what we mean by death by CAPA is that the CAPA process can be more involved, therefore expensive, and if everything goes to CAPA, your system kind of starts bogging down. So to illustrate, the way we're used to thinking about these kinds of systems is there's incidents coming in, we're analyzing them, and then we're finding root cause. So let's stand that on its head, which is kind of really what's going on out there. Let's just assume to build out this kind of scenario is that there's a root cause. You don't know this yet, but the root cause is that you had somebody in your training department leave and you never replaced them. So now some of the training materials are kind of falling out of date as SOPs get revised. So how would that play out, right? So let's assume this just happened. Now there's a deviation coming in and you investigate, and it basically boils down to its operator error. So somebody didn't follow the procedure or skipped over a step. And if you were to take an incident like that into CAPA, it's really hard to find an actual root cause. You have one incident, it's not a pattern of any sort. And as a matter of fact, a lot of auditors, CAPAs that get resolved with the resolution of, oh, it was operator error, are kind of a flag, right? If you apply the system, right, your risk assessment on that would be, well, we have one incident, right? So it's low frequency. We caught it. It might not be high impact. You take the operator, you train them, and you move on and close out your deviation. Now let's imagine there is that root cause out there, right? So the training materials are falling behind. So you get additional deviations and nonconformances, and you start concluding, oh, these are operator errors. At some point, somebody might raise the flag, man, we had 5, 6, 7 of these. Let's take this to issue review. And you escalate it to issue review, and the review might say, well, 7 incidents in the scheme of things. We do hundreds of transactions every day. It doesn't seem like that big a deal. We'll close it for now, but we'll monitor. Now, as this issue unfolds and gets worse over time, you'll get additional incidents. And now that you're monitoring for it, you might catch that pretty quickly. So now you actually escalate to a full-on CAPA. And that really allows you to kind of streamline the process, making sure it doesn't bog down. Another common issue is failure to recognize duplicates. So what I mean by that is you get the same event logged multiple times just because different people observe it and they both log it. Now you have 2. Another type of duplication could be not lumping together the correct quality events into the correct CAPA. So you end up having multiple CAPAs really for the same issue, and it just never comes together. An obvious cause for that are paper systems. It's very hard to have transparency of what's going on, what the data is that's coming in. But even electronic systems can be opaque. There's a lot of factors that play in. There could be access restrictions, just separations by department and things like that decrease visibility. So kind of building on that opaqueness in the data, we talked about the duplicated effort. So those data relationships can be really tricky. You have sometimes a lot of deviations coming in depending on your environment, depending on your volume. And the data essentially consists of error reports, descriptions, maybe assignments to product IDs. And how do you sift through all that data and figure out what is actually caused by the same underlying issue? So that can be a real issue there. Another aspect is around ownership. quality events usually are cross-departmental. And so quality has the biggest vested interest in overseeing those quality events, seeing them through to completion, but they can't do it on their own. They rely on production folk, people from the lab and whatnot, to contribute good data that you can actually get to a solid root cause. The other aspect of that is timeliness. Common issue is things just kind of lag and don't get to a resolution in a timely fashion. Oftentimes the response is let's put in due dates, but that can backfire because as you have due dates, people kind of get to it at the last minute and you don't get the kind of quality that you're looking for.
Great, thanks, Oliver. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about some of the new technologies and solutions that are on the market and how they can address some of these challenges that Oliver's talked about, and especially if you are still on paper or if you have an older electronic system, looking at kind of more modern solutions that are out there, I think can really offer a lot of benefits to you. So let's dive right in terms of an electronic system really starts with an electronic workflow, and that workflow will provide a lot of visibility into your quality events. So you'll have real-time data in terms of where each quality event is sitting. So if you can down to which user is holding up which event, right? And so you can go talk to that person, find out what needs to happen to move it along. And another aspect to that is you'll understand how long on average each quality event is taking, or each step in that event is taking. So it gives you an idea of where to start when you're streamlining your processes, right? So you can see a specific step in your process is taking 5 days, and you can look, and that's the longest step in the whole workflow. That's a good place to look at starting. Electronic workflows allow you to add due dates. You got to use those judiciously, as Oliver highlighted. Also escalation points. All those things can help compress the cycle times in your quality events. And a big thing nowadays is really it promotes the remote collaboration and sign-off, right? Like in today's environment, getting a paper signature can be tricky, right? So an electronic system allows that sign-off. You could do it on a mobile device. All that very easy to do nowadays in a quality event system. And bringing people together, right? Like you're not in the same location. You may have people in different sites, people working from home. Getting the right people together for a problem is something that can really be facilitated with a modern system. Next item is the visibility into risk. Oliver highlighted death by CAPA and the approach, a risk-based approach where you're closing out your low-risk events so that you're not taking everything into CAPA is really a key piece to a well-functioning system. Really, this approach is predicated on that visibility into that data, right? You need to monitor and track and trend and be able to see events that maybe you've closed out that are trending to the point where you should look at CAPA. So, and these might not be safety events, they could be just small annoyances that customers are having with a product. And if the majority of your customers are annoyed with some aspect of the product, that's a business issue. That should be escalated to CAPA to look at resolution there, what can be done to fix that. So the visibility into your data and the impact on risk is a key advantage and benefit to a QEM system. The next element, closed loop quality. I think this is an area that many of you are familiar with. It's a lot of systems on the market really allow this closed loop aspect in the sense that you're connecting your quality event system to your downstream solutions like document management, learning management. So you do your root cause analysis, you figure out what's happening, but if you don't look at updating your procedures to address the challenges, or training your operators on those updated procedures, you're not closing the loop, and your solution, your issues will reoccur, right? So that the closed loop system is really the heart of a continuous improvement cycle that we're all looking for there. Another benefit is templates, best practice templates. It's a really big benefit if you're new to quality. That can be a challenge, like setting up quality events. What data do you capture for nonconformance, or what's the steps in the workflow for that, right? Having a template to start from can really be a time saver, and even for experienced people in quality, I think they appreciate seeing and learning from their peers the knowledge that is accumulated in these best practice templates, and they can kind of incorporate those elements into their own processes. So that's pretty common as well currently. And then lastly, a benefit is integrating your systems and processes. So a quality event tool is really a key tool in your toolbox, if you will, in having your people follow the processes, right? Make sure that each step in the process is handled. It can help guide your users as to what data they need to complete. It's not going to eliminate human error, but it will definitely improve the outcomes that you're looking for. Kind of a related topic is that I thought I'd just touch on briefly is upgrading to the cloud. So a lot of systems out there today are cloud-based, and for a lot of companies out there, cloud-based systems it's standard practice, right? It's been around for a while, and that's just things that they do. But for others, it's still relatively new and not as widely adopted within their company. So I thought I'd provide some perspective, my perspective at least, on a couple of the advantages to cloud-based system. One is it's very cost effective. So standing up an enterprise application there's a lot of moving parts, right? You need the IT infrastructure, the servers, the operating systems, the database, all that software and firewalls, everything involved in that IT infrastructure. With a cloud system, you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to incur those costs. Additionally, cloud-based systems are generally very flexible in their pricing, right? You don't have that upfront cost, and you're not locked into long-term contracts. So there's a lot of advantages that way. But from my perspective, and I guess it's a little bit of a biased view, is I think the fact that you're automatically upgraded in the cloud has even more benefits than it being cheaper, right? Basically because you're getting the latest software. You're always upgraded. I talk to customers who are on our legacy on-premise solutions, and generally, almost always the use cases they're looking for or the functionality they're wanting is already available in our cloud solution. So it's a big benefit to keep your software current, and so it matches your business processes. And then one cautionary note, when you're looking to a cloud-based solution, is you should really investigate the validation approach that the vendor has, because it needs to be sustainable. Cloud releases are generally much more frequent, and so you'll need to make sure your system stays in a validated state. And so the validation approach of that vendor should be sustainable and follow good best practices there. Okay, so we've talked about kind of what's out there currently, kind of the benefits to modern QEM solutions. But what's next? What's the future like? And I thought I would cover a few of the trends that I'm seeing currently in the industry, and the first one is really, I call it purpose-built solutions. What does that mean? Well, really, it's designing a tool that's specific to the need at hand. So in this case, a quality event solution. There's tools out there that you could use, for example, a business process management tool, a very kind of generic workflow management piece of software that is used to process mortgage loan applications, for example. You could take that and potentially get it to handle a quality event. Some of the issues you'd probably run into is it's the complexity, first understanding the tool, and then coding and configuring that tool to get it to work in a quality event space. Yeah, it wasn't really designed for that. So you could get it to work. The end user experience probably won't be ideal, and it's probably going to take you a long time to get there. Versus a purpose-built solution that's designed specifically to handle quality events will really improve those outcomes, right? And what's driving this is really something that in the software industry we call it UX, or user experience design, and that's really a driving force behind product design nowadays, and it really makes your solutions easier to use, and you see that a lot in the consumer software space, the applications on your phone, right? Easy to use, very purpose-built, and we see more of that in the future, transitioning into the enterprise business space. So that's an area that I think you'll see more of in the future. The next trend I'd like to talk about briefly is what I call dynamic orchestration. And what I mean by that is the solutions will adapt to the context, right? So in the case of a quality event solution, say the event has a different workflow path that needs to happen based on the product that the event is related to, right? The system will be able to handle that and manage that situation dynamically. If one user's at a site in the US versus another user at a site in the UK, you may have slightly different processes or different access controls. The system understands those attributes for those users and adjusts based on rules that you've configured within the system. So that dynamic orchestration in conjunction with a purpose-built solution really makes it agile and adaptive and at the same time very user-friendly. And then the last trend I'd like to touch on is what I call predictive recommendations. And what I mean by that is the ability for machine learning and artificial intelligence to determine patterns from your data and provide recommendations. And you see that in a number of mainstream applications, right? You get movie recommendations or shopping recommendations, right? Driven by that ML AI kind of technology. And that will become more and more common in the quality event space. So, for example, you're at the point where you're evaluating an issue, you're doing a risk assessment. Should it go to CAPA, right? And ML can provide recommendations and issues that surface those that you may not have thought of. And the way I view it is it's really augmenting the human factor and the judgment, providing that benefit. I don't see, at least in the near term, ML making those decisions for you, but really providing those recommendations in a predictive manner. So that's some of the future trends that I think you'll be seeing more and more of as time goes on. So let's talk MasterControl's future. So what's our future look like relative to QEM? So we are in the middle of building out what we refer to as our advanced QEM platform. So this is our next iteration of our QEM system. And it is what we refer to as a no-code platform. And what that means is you build out your quality events using plug-and-play components, right? and rules engine, configurable workflows, and form builders. So there's no coding in the solution at all. It's all configuration, very easy to change, and it's all in under that purpose-built umbrella, so it makes sense within a quality event context. And I have a few screenshots I'll show to kind of convey what I'm talking about there, but data-driven, best practice methodology, so being able to really start out at the gate using the system, right? And if there's situations where you feel like you need to tweak or change things, very simple to do. So let me show you a quick peek, a sneak peek of some of the screenshots of this new system that we're developing. So this first one is just a kind of the initial screen that when you go to create a brand new event. And generally, we're not expecting our customers to really use this much. But if there's a solution that we don't provide that they want to build out from scratch, or they look at our solutions and go, no, it's not our industry, or we just want to start over. Our goal is for you to be able to build those out in a very simple manner and really without our involvement, right? Traditionally, enterprise application vendors, you really will generally have to rely on the services group to really configure and to build out the software. But our goal as a product group is to build the solution in a way that is both simple and yet powerful. And that's a pretty ambitious goal, and that's where our UX designers come in and can really help out in that area. Okay, so let's look at a sneak peek of what this new advanced QM solution looks like. So I have a few screenshots that I'd like to show. So here's the kind of the initial screen to create a new quality event from scratch. We're really not expecting many people to use this screen because we have those best practice templates. But if you need to build out a solution that we don't offer, or if you're looking and it feels easier just to start from scratch, you could do that. And really our goal from a product team standpoint and our UX designers is really to be able to, for you, the customer, to build these out on your own and not involve us, not involve our services group if you don't want to. Our services group is great. They're able to help and provide consulting to you, but the goal is really if you want to make a change or you want to start from scratch, you could do this by yourself. So you start out, you build your workflow. In this case, I've got relatively complex workflow. I've got 3 steps with a branch in the middle. But it can be as simple or as complex as you need it to be to match your business processes, right? So it could be 3 consecutive sequential steps. It could be 5 steps with nested branches in between. It's really kind of up to you as to how your business process for a specific quality event needs to be created. And like I said, it is a no-code platform. So these branches, the way you would build out those branches is by building out a simple rule, right? You put in the logic to decide which path or paths your workflow needs to go. And each one of those steps is associated to a form or data collection area. So you have the items on the left there that you can drop into the form panel and decide, okay, this is the data I need. And there's, like I said, there's these plug and play components. Some of them can be advanced components like a risk matrix, which you configure how many columns and rows you want for your frequency and impact, for example. And like the workflow builder, it is dynamic and rules-based. So if I need to add logic to hide a section, if something's low risk, or make things required if it's a high-risk situation, if I need to populate data from one field to another, perform calculations with the data, all these rule actions are available and can be built out in a no-code manner. So this is an area that is is exciting and is something that we're excited to roll out to our customers. And one last slide, we refer to it as a knowledge graph. With Advanced QEM, we're really looking to make it a more visual experience so users can explore the data in a visual manner. In this case, we're showing relationships between events and products, and these are explicit relationships. And then we'll infuse AI and ML to surface potentially implicit relationships that you may not be aware of, and can really provide value as to related elements within your system. So excited about this new product. We're, like I said, it's in development, and we will be releasing the initial version next year. I'll hand it back to Oliver to wrap up.
All right. Depending on where you are in your journey, where do you go from here? Going from manual to digital to intelligent. So, we're working for a software company, and we kind of have our feet both in the best practices for software development, as well as FDA-regulated environments from our customers. And Dave alluded to cloud software. So big changes happened there is that agile software development principles really stress continuous small incremental changes that you roll out to customers very quickly to get feedback. And so this is one of those things that resonates across industries, right? So it's something that started in consumer software. We're starting to build our processes around that. And it's starting to impact our customers, and I think resonates well with our customers. So basically break it down, take a small step, iterate, reassess where you are, and take the next step. So for example, if you're still using paper, that's an easy one. Consider an electronic solution. You'll get immediate benefits just from being electronic, being able to search, gaining visibility, right? Where are your tasks? A piece of paper can only be on one desk at the same time. An electronic piece of paper or record can be on many, many desks at the same time. And you can also find where it is. In terms of getting started on that, the old school type software development or implementation projects also as a consequence. You upgrade or you implement a new version. It's this big project. It's expensive upfront cost. It has long timelines, really high risk, high impact kind of projects. And really that's changing to the point where you can go to a cloud provider, basically start a subscription for a few users, maybe identify a single process. Maybe you want to start with deviation or CAPA and try it out for 4 or 5 people. And then see, do you want to expand it? Another thing to do, of course, is to look at your existing process, like where does it stall out, what's going on with it. That applies to paper or electronic, it doesn't really matter. If it's not flowing the way it should, if your cycle times are too long, that is definitely something to look into. And remember that risk-based approach that allows you to cut down on the amount of processing you're actually doing and the escalation and investment in those. If you're already electronic, make sure your vendor is a good partner that will enable you to go to the next step, that they have a strong platform that can evolve with changes in technology, and consider exploring options for using predictive analytics that Dave was alluding to. There's a lot going on with machine learning and artificial intelligence. There's not that much on the market yet, but it's an up-and-coming field, and it's something to look at. Okay, so it looks like we've reached our Q&A section, and I'll ask Jennifer to come back up.
Well, Dave and Oliver, thank you so much for your time today. I hope everybody out there in the audience was able to get some good takeaways from the information that they were able to provide today. There were a few things that you keyed in on. In the last part, when you talk about taking small steps, we find this so many times when I'm talking to people, whether it's at a trade show or just one of our customers. They talk about the overwhelming feeling they have when they think about how much they have to digitize within their organization. And we always emphasize success breeds success. So take small pieces, take little areas and digitize. And then when that gets adopted and it's successful and people are feeling some momentum from that, you can go to the next chunk and digitize that. So we don't want anyone out there to be overwhelmed or think that this process is something that is unachievable. It always is. You just have to chunk it down into those little bites. The other thing that I think our takeaway from today is when you think about the efficiencies that your teams will gain or that the quality professionals will gain as a result of using newer technologies, that frees them up for time to do more meaningful work within the organization, which is also something that we hear about quite a bit. Like, I would rather be working on process improvement than pushing paper, or I would rather be looking at data and being able to understand how to expedite something or how to accelerate something to market than tracking down someone's training. So you have to have that kind of forward scope to really understand, like, where is the technology going to help me, and then what's it going to free up my people to do in other places. So, all right, well, with that, we've got a couple of questions that have come in. I'm going to go ahead and start off. There's a lot of talk about artificial intelligence and machine learning. We see it all over social media, in all of the industry publications. How close are these realistically to rolling into the solutions and really providing those insightful benefits to users?
I'll take that one. Yeah, I'll take it. Yeah, no, that's a great question, actually. Excellent. And our advanced QM solution that we're building currently, we're designing AI and ML features in from the ground up. So it's not as far off as you think, though I think our initial release that's coming shortly, we won't have those capabilities built in right off the bat, but I think probably shortly thereafter, probably version 2, if you will, we will have the start of our ML kind of capabilities, and then they will grow over time as we include those.
And that's because we're applying the thought process that we just talked about, which is taking small steps, pick something, get it working, get people using it, right? I always talk about the iPod, right? Does anyone remember the first iPod that came out? It was like the size of a deck of cards, and it held hardly anything. It didn't have a screen on it. And then 5-10 years later, you get one that's this big, and it's got a little screen on it, and you can see the song that's playing and all that. And now they aren't even out there anymore. Now they don't even exist. Now it's just been rolled right into the iPhone. So you can see how technology takes those small, agile steps and keeps improving upon.
Definitely.
All right, next questions. We have a lot of issues where tasks in other departments essentially disappear into a black hole, and it takes a lot of effort to stay on top of things. How can electronic systems help?
I can take that one. I think I alluded to that already, partially. And I can't believe we're still talking about paper, right? But a lot of you out there are still on paper. That's a really great first step, is to go electronic. That provides that traceability. At least you can find where it is. It might still get stuck, but at least you can you find it. And you can then call the person that has it. Beyond that, with our new platform, we're doing a lot of research into this, around that. And what we're finding is that there's a big factor in an electronic system. Right? A task comes to you, but there's still gaps in terms of, okay, what am I supposed to do? Okay, I'm busy, I'm gone. And you look at it like, okay, who do I need to call to get more information, or send an email, and you send an email and you come back the next day and you look at it. So there's all kinds of stuff that we're looking at in terms of communication in the software. So I think about chatting to the person, being able to provide annotation on the record, potentially, and also some other collaboration tools. We're actually in the process of doing true real-time collaboration on a form, where you can actually see the other person logging the field as they type, and then the field updating. And so we'll expand on those ideas in the future, and we'll see what works based on feedback. But there's a lot of excitement in that space. And our UX people, Dave's mentioned them a few times. They're really, really helpful to kind of get us on the right track in that area.
Nice, very nice. Okay, one more question. Our company doesn't have a lot of visibility into our CMO's production. Can you offer some tips on improving that transparency so we can have a clearer picture of their activities and how they impact our product quality.
Do you want to take that one?
Sure, I'll give it a first swipe. So one thing we've seen with customers, being an electronic system, there's an initial mindset, oh, we have to keep it to ourselves, right? We control this. But realize that you can also create accounts for other people that are outside of your organization. There might be some hurdles to that in terms of security concerns and all that. But it's an option that some customers have pursued, and that really kind of opens up the gates to that, break down the barriers, right? We're also doing research around that. Like there's ideas of integrating or maybe kind of an ecosystem supplier to supplier, like MasterControl being an instance for both customers, and how do you integrate that so the information actually flows from one system to another. But that's also something we're looking at.
Yeah, and what I've seen is generally you'll have different tiers in your suppliers, and you'll have maybe your core suppliers that you rely on day in and day out, and you're going to pull those into your processes, give them logins, whereas a lot of your lower tier ones that you don't use that often may kind of keep them at a more of a distance because you don't need to integrate them.
All right. Well, that kind of wraps up and brings us to the end of our presentation today. Again, I want to thank Dave and Oliver for their time. I want to thank you all for joining us today. Should you have any additional questions or want to learn more about MasterControl, you can always request a demo at www.mastercontrol.com. We will be sending out a follow-up email with a link to the recording. So if there's anyone else in your organization that you want to share this information with, you will have that available to you. And with that, thank you and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks.